the awesome Yamaha MT-10. Today we're going to be answering the age-old question, which would I take home, this or my ZH2? This is going to be a very difficult video to shoot because both of these motorcycles honestly are at the top of the super naked league. This is honestly a very good bike, and oh my god, I've only just realised it's got a steering damper. It's got a steering damper. That's so weird. Usually steering dampers are at the top, but I suppose because the way how these handlebars are set up, you don't have the room to put one of these in. That is awesome. I had no idea. Well, there you go. That's another thing to add to the amount of awesome things this motorcycle has to offer. All right, let's jump on and let's get this video over with. I don't want to shoot this one because I honestly don't know if I'd be able to pick between the two. On one of the days it will be the MT-10, on another day it might be the ZH2. This is going to be a very difficult video to shoot for me, but I definitely think that at some point in the future I will be buying one of these motorcycles, without a doubt. They're that good. I mean, go ahead and check out our first impressions ride review of the MT-10, where we kind of answer whether or not I would take this over an MT-09. I'll go and redirect you to that video because the MT-09 is a fantastic motorcycle in its own right. Seriously good. But this this and the ZH2, honestly, they have a lot of similarities in terms of the riding experience, despite the fact that the MT-10 is producing significantly less torque and horsepower. As a street fighter motorcycle, this is just perfect in so many ways. It's not incredibly heavy, the clutch is nice and light, the ergonomics are perfect, very comfortable. You could do a lot of miles on this bike. This is honestly just one of the best, if not the best, nakeds on the market right now. I love it. And this is quite a warm day today. I'm not feeling a lot of heat being blasted onto my legs either. So the way how this body has been designed here, the kind of shell, the plastic shell around the engine, I think it's directing most of the heat away from my legs, which honestly on a day like today is incredibly pleasant. This bike is great, man. I mean, the problem is, I was going to say that this feels maybe a little bit less refined, but I don't know if that's a good thing or not. Compared to the ZH2, I think the ZH2 feels a little bit more refined than this, but I don't know if that's a good thing. In a lot of ways, having a rawer experience might actually be the better experience in this context. That throttle response is incredibly sensitive. Things like that, see, are very refined, whereas on the ZH2, the throttle response there is a little bit lacking. Whereas this, it's immediate. As soon as you pull on that throttle, you feel it. And even though this is an electronic unit, you still want to feel like as if you're physically opening and closing the throttles, you know what I mean? And this bike does kind of give you that impression. I mean, I don't know, it's difficult for me to say because on a carbureted motorcycle, it does seem to be a bit of a delay. So there's been a lot of refinements done, obviously, to this kind of tech, and it is for the better. Seriously, it feels really damn good. I mean, the thing is, this bike will pop wheelies like they were nothing, and very fun, innocent wheelies as well. You know, they maybe come off a foot off the ground or so, but when the wheelie control kicks in, it really brings you down gently. And the thing is about the ZH2, I found with my wheelie control anyway, on my specific motorcycle, is that the wheelie control is very abrupt. So a wheel comes up a little bit, then it cuts out the power immediately. Whereas this, it doesn't. It lowers the power very gradually. And so you've got that feeling that you are 100% in control of the bike at all times, even when the front wheel is off the ground. God, it's brilliant. absolutely brilliant, this bike, in every way, shape or form. Now the ZH2 on the other hand, I mean, again, it's just one of those bikes that's on another level. In terms of performance, it's on another level, but how much of that performance are you able to use on the street? Oh my goodness. That's ugly. You know what I mean? You're never going to be able to use the whole 200 horsepower that the ZH2 has to offer. So, you know, and this torque is, I think, actually really reasonable. The MT-10 has got a perfect torque curve, in my opinion. It doesn't feel like all or nothing. You can really kind of brace yourself into it. It's not overly scary in that regard. Whereas the ZH2, on the other hand, that torque is very scary. Do you know what I mean? Look. I'm giving it ever so slight throttle on there, and it's revving. My ZH2 doesn't feel like that. You've got to turn it probably a good, I don't know, maybe 3 centimeters or so before it starts registering on the dashboard. I don't know, I'll check that later. Maybe I'm being a bit too harsh. Right, let's get out of this traffic, shall we? I suppose that's the thing about the ZH2, which really does kind of win over this, is the fact that it's got bragging rights. Because you've got all of that extra torque, all that extra horsepower over this. But one of the big wins for this bike is the weight. The ZH2, quite a heavy naked, weighing 240 kilograms wet, I think, somewhere thereabouts. Whereas this, 212 kilograms wet. Oh, that's stuff dreams are made out of. Seriously, that's a huge win for the bike because it makes it feel so nimble. So I think, you know, if you want a track machine, the ZH2 I think is more suited as a track machine than this. But this is arguably more suited for street use because you're able to make use of most, if not all, of the power fairly innocently. This has got a lot going for it. It really does, man. And I don't know, if I had this bike for longer, then maybe I would say this over the ZH2. But I think I've got to give it to the ZH2 by a whisker. I think the ZH2 has just got the edge over this bike. Purely for those bragging rights, I think. But in terms of the riding experience, both of these two bikes are on par. They are seriously good. These two bikes have got so much to offer, and if you were choosing between the two, because they're both in very similar kind of price range, I was going to say price brackets, but it kind of came out as price range. Both these bikes really do. Both of these bikes are very similarly priced. I don't think you'll be disappointed with either. I think you'll be incredibly happy. And depending on the kind of riding that you're going to be doing, you know, is it going to be a weekend toy, or do you intend to do a lot of touring with it or something like that? Or maybe the MT-10 has got the edge over the ZH2. Seriously, it's that close. It depends on the use case. And I know that kind of applies to a lot of motorcycles, but both of these bikes are so incredibly matched in so many ways, in so many categories, that I'm kind of pulling at hairs to figure out which is better over the other. And I think it really does depend on, one, the experience that you want, and two, what your use case is. Because I personally think that this bike is going to be more suited for touring than the ZH2. But both of these bikes, man, are an absolute blast to ride. And in terms of features, I think they're both pretty much are on par as well in terms of features. But it's, yeah, everything about these two bikes is so evenly matched. And I think the only real trump card that the ZH2 has, that kind of trick up its sleeve, has got to be that supercharger. Imagine what this bike would be like if it had a supercharger. Then we'd be talking incredibly evenly about both these two bikes in so many ways. Man. Yeah, both these bikes very, very good, but I have to give it to the ZH2, honestly. Despite the fact that this bike right here is buckets of fun, and I would own one of these, I don't know if I would own it in place of my ZH2. I would own it next to my ZH2. But then again, I don't know, because they both have very similar experiences. Maybe they'd get a little bit boring, you know, if I had both of them. So I don't know. But I will be owning one of these at some point in future. I promise you that. Because these are awesome. And despite the fact that the screen might be a little bit small, it's basically the same size as the ZH2 as well. There's no real difference there. The brightness is pretty much the same as well between the two. Honestly, there's so much comparable. I'll tell you what, the MT-10 has got some wins. It's got that steering damper. It's got this power outlet here, again, more suited for touring than my ZH2. That's what it points to at the end of the day. I love it. Absolutely love it. Thank you. Woo! What a load of fun! What a load of fun, man. Oh. One thing of this bike is probably going to be better out than ZH2. Fuel economy. Without a shadow of a doubt, this bike is going to have better fuel economy than ZH2. Because that supercharger, when you're on the power, it drinks fuel. Oh, God, this bike is good. Man, it's so hard to pick between the two. I keep toing and froing, but I keep going back to the ZH2 in the end. But honestly, I don't think you'll be disappointed with either of these two bikes, and I'm just having a blast. Yeah, every single time whenever I try and think of things to talk about between this bike and my ZH2, I just keep getting sucked in by the amount of fun that this bike is. How much fun this bike has, how much fun factor this bike has. It's just incredible. Buckets of fun. Shame about all this traffic though. I mean, I'd be having a lot more fun if didn't have this traffic to worry about. I will say this, you don't need to pull the throttle back all the way to get 100% throttle. At least that's not how it feels. It feels like I'm pulling maybe halfway, and yeah, I'm getting a lot of power, maybe all of it, I'm not sure, but yeah, it does feel like a lot of power in a narrow kind of window there on the throttle pull. Now forgive me, is this a cross-plane crank? I don't know. I don't know. I'm not 100% clued up on the engine design, but this might be a cross-plane crank as well. So whereas you get two pistons coming up and combusting at the same time, basically on the same stroke, whereas with this crank, or the cross-plane crank rather, all of the cylinders have different ignition timings. So you're getting constant power. You're not getting any dips in power. Which, I mean, you'd think that it would produce less torque, wouldn't you? But I don't know, maybe this has got a traditional firing order, I'm not sure. You'll have to forgive me on that. But regardless, I don't care. I don't care what engine design this has. It's just wicked. So much to offer. Oh, so much fun. Honestly, everyone, these bikes, I know they're expensive, but These experiences are second to none. They are the best experiences that you can possibly get on two wheels. Seriously, these are better experiences than any sport motorcycle, I'm telling you right now. Sport bikes can be a lot of fun, but you can't use all of the power a lot of the time, because all the power, you know, you're already doing like 70 or 80 mile an hour before you hit the power band. Whereas with these bikes, it feels like the whole range is the power band. So you're able to use so much of it, even at slow speeds. And it makes so much sense. For street use, these are the perfect bikes. I'm telling you. And every naked I've had a go on, despite the fact that the Z900 has got some shortcomings, right, it's still an incredible experience for street riding. It really is, genuinely. Even though it's missing some features. That's a nice bike. It doesn't matter. The riding experience, first and foremost, is the priority. And every naked I've ever been on, including the Z400 and the Z900, have been really good riding experiences. The best riding experiences I've had on two wheels. And when you get into this kind of caliber, when you get into this level, this is when you're at the peak of motorcycle experiencing. Seriously. The experiences that you can have on two wheels at this level is very good. And I was a little bit worried that it would feel a bit too much like a sport bike in some ways. I was a little bit worried that it would feel a little bit too similar to the R1 in terms of the throttle, in terms of kind of like the way how the bike would feel to ride. But no, I'm pleasantly surprised, and I'm pleased to say that this bike actually feels like a thoroughbred naked through and through. And I suppose we've got to do one last wheelie, haven't we? And the fact you can keep it in the air and controlled is beautiful, man. Absolutely beautiful. What a beautiful riding experience. I think that's the perfect word. A beautiful riding experience in every sense of the word. Loads of fun. Heavily recommend it. But I think the ZH2 just about takes the edge. But there you have it, everyone. Thank you ever so much for joining me on today's ride. Now you let me know what you think. If you've had the privilege and pleasure of riding both the MT-10 and the ZH2, let me know if you came to the same conclusion as me. I'd be really curious. I'd love to hear what you guys have to say about these two bikes. But thank you ever so much for joining me on today's ride. As always, leave that like, hit that subscribe button and that notification bell so you don't miss any more of our videos going forward in future, any more of our motorcycle reviews and any more Yamaha motorcycles. And we'll catch you all in the next video. Take care, ride safe.